All right, everybody, town hall, the bickering, back and forth, finger pointing. So we're going to jump around to a bunch of different sources, but I wanted to thank Tom Jones first. He's living there in Louisiana, and he's the one that brought this to my attention. We were talking about this last night. So Tom, thanks. And his sister is actually a nurse out there. She had a patient recently that had COVID-19, so she's out there on the front lines dealing with that. So send my love and respect to your sister as well, Tom. So let's take a look at this here real quick. New Orleans mayor blames Trump for not shutting down Mardi Gras over coronavirus. All right, so that's one article. Now let me flip to this other one. So this is from NOLA.com. New Orleans leaders bristle over Mardi Gras criticism, point to lack of coronavirus warning. So again, like I said with the previous article, pointing the finger at Trump. So let's go ahead and read a little bit of that article real quick, and then I'll flip back to the other stuff. And then there's some diagrams I want to show you about how it's spreading there in Louisiana. It says here, a growing consensus that Mardi Gras celebrations in New Orleans helped to seed the city's spiraling coronavirus crisis has spawned a wave of retroactive finger-wagging, with critics saying that more responsible leaders would have called off the city's signature celebration. And for those of you who don't know, they actually went ahead and had their Mardi Gras celebration. It was February 24th was, I believe, the date. Even a month later, I had no idea that this actually happened, that they still had their Mardi Gras in spite of all this. We had this information from China. Italy was jumping off at least a little bit at that time. France was going a little bit at that time, and we had cases here at that time. So hey, I don't know. I mean, it is armchairing, but that's what everybody does. People are doing it of the leaders in New Orleans. People do it of Trump. That's what people do. That's what people write articles on, right? And I guess that's what I talk about in my videos. All right, so here it says the barbs from armchair pundits have drawn fire from city leaders, including Mayor LaTanya Cantrell, as well as ordinary citizens, including critics of the mayor, who see the tutting as Monday morning quarterbacking of the worst kind. Some, including Governor John Bel Edwards, also complained that the sideshow distracts from frantic efforts by public officials and healthcare workers to avert a potential catastrophe, as the number of people critically ill from coronavirus continue to rise, local leaders said. Cantrell and Edwards both say there were no warnings to cancel the massive street party from federal leaders or public health agencies. The failure to fully grasp the coronavirus threat sooner, in other words, was a national one. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention at the same time remained tightly focused on travelers coming into the country from China and raised no alarm that the coronavirus might already be spreading rapidly within the country itself. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, repeatedly sought to assure Americans that the virus was tightly contained. I can't say that I recall him around that time saying that it was tightly controlled. Again, we're talking about a month ago, but again, I can't say that I know that to be true, that he was saying that. I would be careful with what these statements are saying here. I would definitely advise individuals to do some more research and look into what he was talking about at that time. All right, so these next few things I'm going to show you is how it's progressed across Louisiana, and this is actually from March 21st. You see all the areas in blue. These are counties at that time that had cases. So March 21st, 585 cases, 16 deaths, and 2,765 tests completed. Just 5 days later, on March 26th, you can see the state's pretty much all covered in blue right now, right? You can see some of the epicenters, which are these ones right here with the red circles. These are where there's a larger number of individuals who have it. Those are starting to expand, and you're starting to see a lot of smaller dots pop up. Just 5 days later, you went from 500 cases and deaths in the upper teens to 2,305 cases, 83 deaths, and 18,000 plus tests completed. And my mistake, I believe I referred to them as counties. They refer to them as parishes in Louisiana. So my apologies, Tom. Hey, don't hold it against me. I'm learning here. But yeah, and my apologies to anybody else in Louisiana. So the parishes affected, 53 of the 64 total parishes have been affected, and that was on the 26th. Now this is actually on the 27th, most recent data, as I'm shooting this on the night of the 27th. You can see here, it looks pretty much the same. I mean, it was pretty much covered before, 53 parishes. Now it looks like they're up to 54 parishes affected by this, and they're up to 2,746 cases, so about another 400-ish cases and 119 deaths. So that was, and they were just at 83 a day ago, so that's 36. Tests complete, 21,359, which was up a little bit more than 3,000 from the 26th. These are a couple comments from Tom I wanted to highlight. We were just having this discussion last night. He sent me some sources, so thanks for those as well. He says he's betting it gets over 3,000 with the next update. It was close, 2,700. Obviously, you assume it's going to get over that number tomorrow. And he says here they're on lockdown, but they can still go to stores, hospitals, pharmacies, or liquor stores. Side note, I saw North Carolina had issued a stay-at-home order today as well. So it's starting to get to that point everywhere where they're starting to realize the stay-at-home order is the thing they need to do. New Orleans mayor blames Trump for not shutting down Mardi Gras over coronavirus. Okay, so let's read a little bit of this and see what she has to say. Mayor LaTonya Cantrell of New Orleans refuses to take responsibility for her decision not to call off Mardi Gras over concerns of the Wuhan coronavirus. That decision has caused New Orleans to become the epicenter of coronavirus cases in the state of Louisiana, according to medical experts. So, who exactly does the Democratic mayor blame for not canceling Mardi Gras in her own city? Donald Trump. I love how they emphasize the Democrat, because you know what was coming. In an interview with Wolf Blitzer, Cantrell said she didn't take the threat of the virus too seriously because Donald Trump didn't take it seriously. She then gave herself credit for canceling other events in her city subsequent to Mardi Gras, like the St. Patrick's Day parade. Oh, okay. So she doesn't take credit for the bad, but she's taking credit for the good. I got it. But that's the thing with leaders, right? Be you a mayor, governor, president, when things go bad, you're the one that takes the blame. And when they go good, obviously you're the one that gets the credit as well. So you take the good with the bad, right? When it's not taken seriously at the federal level, it's very difficult to transcend down to the local level in making these decisions, Cantrell argued. My pushback on that would be like what they talked about in one of the other articles where travel bans were put in place, but she did indicate that she felt like the focus was on individuals coming from outside of the country. But again, to push back further on that argument, then I would just say, well, we had these examples of other countries. Though it was a month ago, we had still seen what had happened in China, right? You have one case, then you have two, then you have 10, then you have 20. So you've got to use some critical thinking here. That's what people elected you to do, whether you're the mayor, the governor, or the president. That's what you're elected to do. But it was taken seriously at the federal level, as even Mr. Blitzer pointed out. Center for Disease Control Dr. Nancy Messonnier said on February 12th, we can and should be prepared for this new virus to gain a foothold in the United States. So Wolf laid that smackdown on her a little bit. That's funny. President Trump also announced travel restrictions on China in late January, which is what I talked about. And states and local governments have tailored their response to help slow the spread of the coronavirus in their own communities. Perhaps the mayor didn't know a virus could easily spread when you pack 1 million plus people to party in the streets of New Orleans. And I'm laughing, obviously, at the way the tone is and the way this is written. Definitely not at any individual who's going to come down with it because of that. Like I said, if you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm all about you guys. Whether you're here in the U.S. or around the world, I mean, God, man, this stuff is getting rough. And, you know, I'll say for myself that I made a video on this probably a month, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, where I didn't think that it was going to get this bad. I was talking about the flu and the number of individuals who die from the flu and get sick from that every year. And I just assumed it would be a situation where it was like that. So I was wrong. I can admit it. I'll admit when I'm wrong. Apparently LaToya isn't able to do that. Now, hopefully, when we get a handle on this and we look back at this 5 years from now and there's a vaccine and all this other stuff, that we can look back on it and say, hey, you know, it sucked at that time, definitely for everybody, but we were able to kind of overcome all of this through all these measures that we've taken. Here's a tweet from Tom Elliott. New Orleans Mayor LaTonya Cantrell blames Trump for her not canceling Mardi Gras. When it's not taken seriously at the federal level, it's very difficult to transcend down to the local level in making these decisions. I didn't watch the whole video. She seems stupid. You individuals out there in NOLA can tell me if that's the case. In Louisiana, you all probably have a better idea about that than I do. I think there's nothing more grotesque to individuals, we're talking on a local level, than an individual who can't take blame in a time like this. Now, you can run that up the chain if you want. I don't know what she's trying to do. Maybe she's trying to do the old Trump method, if you want to say that. But people that live in New Orleans, I think that this is something I talked about in one of my other videos, is kind of like people during this time are out there. It kind of raises our compassion. It raises our level for mankind in this time, which is great. It's unfortunate that we have to go through this to get there. But I think individuals during this time, they don't want to see somebody who's out there running their mouth, not being accountable, pointing the finger. Had she come out and been a little bit contrite, said, hey, you know, we effed up. This is what we're doing to try to get it right. Sure, the blame would have been there, the heat would have been there from the beginning, but I think over time people would have come to understand that when you see these programs being put in place, and I can tie this to Trump as well, the way he came out in the beginning, kind of dismissive of it, people were giving him a lot of shit for it. But now that he's come out and the government's putting all these programs in place, you start to see things start to soften. And people are like, hey, this is the leadership we need. This is what we wanted this whole time. Maybe she'll learn. When you have somebody who's just pointing the fingers nonstop and in denial and maybe only caring about getting reelected, that's an individual or that's a politician that gets dealt with and gets booted out when it's time for her to be up for election. So let's take a look at some of these comments real quick. And keep in mind, this is a right-leaning site, so the comments are going to probably reflect that. She is the new Ray Nagin. In a couple of years, she will go down for corruption. Also, I had forgotten about him. Somebody says, who dat? Who dat? Not them saints. A little NOLA tribute there. But one really idiotic dim-witted mayor is who dat. Must be a requirement for the job of New Orleans mayor because the last three have had a collective IQ lower than the elevation of the underwater sea level of the city of New Orleans. Yeah, I don't know about the other one. I'm assuming Nagin was the first. I don't know who came in between. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but they certainly have had some issues, so we'll see what happens here. The next comment down says she's a complete buffoon. Apparently she doesn't realize the federal government doesn't run New Orleans, nor directly responsible for any other city. This is what one refers to as a glittering jewel of colossal ignorance. Kay says, isn't it amazing that liberals can never be held accountable for anything? Some other people say NOLA, the armpit of America. Some people are talking about ignorance, IQ, yada, yada, yada. Here somebody says New York had their Chinese Lunar New Year's parade around February 9th called the Year of the Rat. Now de Blasio wants a buttload of masks, supplies, gloves, etc. Okay, like I said, you guys get the point. People are calling it out. Like I said, it's a site that leans right. The comments are as such. You'd expect it to be like that. It's getting a little political, so we'll kind of skip off on that stuff. You guys get the point. Individuals on that side of the whole political spectrum are definitely not happy with what she's doing there in New Orleans. And again, it just goes back to what I said. In times of crisis, we like firm leadership, but we also like individuals that can accept responsibility because nobody's without flaw. I know Trump likes to think he's without flaw, but we all are. We all make mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I effed up. I'm sorry, I've got your back, but this is what we're trying to do to make things right. I think people kind of are more willing to show that respect and reciprocate that love back if they feel like they're getting it in return. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Like I said, I'm getting mushy in these times, caring for my fellow man, woman, child, and everything. So that's what I've got on the video. But again, thanks to Tom and his nurse sister and all the nurses, doctors, everybody out there. I always try to show them love as much as possible. First responders, everybody out there doing the dirty work, trying to take care of people and trying to nurse everybody back to health. A definite shout out to you. And Tom, thanks for bringing all this to my attention and kind of getting me going in the right direction with this. So it's much appreciated, brother. To the rest of you, thanks as always for watching the video. I'd love to hear what you think. And if any of you have some stories going on in your city, definitely shoot them my way. Shoot me some sources. It's so hard to keep up with everything that's going on and, time being limited. I can only get through a certain amount. So it definitely helps give me focus if I'm getting sources or getting comments from people saying, hey, what about here? What about here? So it definitely helps, believe me. So whatever you got, bring it on. I appreciate it. Thanks as always for watching the video. And again, stay safe out there. Tom, like I said, to you and your sister, stay safe, stay healthy. And that goes for everybody out there watching, no matter where you're at. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay inside, help prevent the spread. All right, so take care, everybody, and thanks again. Have a good night.